We see in Shalach this a really horrific story of the Meraglim, which, in a sense, we're still suffering from today. Every time we have a Tisha B'Av, in a sense, we are reminded that this happened because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Klal Yisrael, you cry for no reason, you cry b'chinam, I will, Rahman al give you reason to cry. So, till we have that Tisha B'Av where there is no longer any crying and we're not on the floor and we're celebrating the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, in a sense, it's all can be rooted back to this terrible story. And what's really amazing is that, as seen from the Ramban, just the power of Dibur, and just even in general, the power of the Aveir of the Meraglim, the sin of the spies, while one would argue it reflects so much of a lack of bitachon, and that really was the ultimate sin of not trusting in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe Rabbeinu, not believing that after seeing so many miracles and knowing the power of Hashem, that to not believe they can go into Eretz Yisrael, not to believe that this was the whole purpose of their sojourn from Mitzrayim to the Midbar, was to get the Torah and to go into Eretz Yisrael. That was what it was all about. So despite, while on the surface one would imagine that this is like big issues going on here, fundamental problems, it seems it all turned on subtleties, on small things, things that maybe even are imperceptible, just reminding us again that even when there are serious aveiros going on, at the root of it, if we'd be a little bit more careful, we could have maybe avoided those aveiros. Because they come back, the Meraglim, the spies come back, and they tell the story of everything that happened, and the Ramban points out that really everything that they were saying is true. There were giants. They showed them the fruits of the land. Okay, and they even recognized v'gam zovas chalav u'dvashu v'zeh pirya. So Ramban is saying that everything they were saying was true, and they were supposed to report back what they saw. So really, there was really no problem yet. Till the words v'gam zavas chalav v'dvashu v'zeh pirya, everything was good. They were reporting back and answering all the questions that they were asked to check out in their going into Eretz Yisrael. Ramban says, "V'nei b'chol ze omer emes v'yeshivu al mashen tzavu v'yolahem leimor sha'am hayoshav ala oz ha'arim oz v'arim b'tzuros." And they should have continued the report by saying that the nation is powerful, these cities are fortified. It says, why? They should have returned with a true report. That was what they asked. You don't have to fluff it up and cover it up. Those were the questions. Where are the cities? Where are the armies? Where are the fortifications? Where's the weakness? Where's the strength? So tell us what it is. Tell us what's going on. Because clearly, even though this was going to be clearly a divinely not only ordained but protected project of a supernatural level, clearly they were supposed to do things by the book, by the normal methodology. Not to rely on open miracles, but to do things based on the typical human intelligence. Alvarisham b'milas efes, but the rishus, incredibly, what the words of the Ramban is saying, that they're rishus, that their whole, in a sense, what illuminated their real attitude and the real problem of this entire report was that word efes. One word thrown in that whole report, shayamora adavar afes, v'nimna min adam, which implies, that word efes implies not just a but a but that seems to be undoable. It's not possible. Shiaf shebishaminyan, koloshin afes lanetzach chazdai. Okay, he says, and that's the problem. He says because when you add that word Ephes or Ophes, obviously the word is read Ephes, but also has an implication of a sort of an impossibility. That one word communicated so much that Klal Yisrael's response was horrific. They immediately recognized what they were saying and what they were implying, and that turned them. It's remarkable. I mean, it's again the power of speech. The truth of the matter is, when the Torah goes back and reflects on the Aveira of the Meraglim, again the Aveira is speaking Diba al Eretz Yisrael. They spoke Lashon Hara. I mean, that's the Aveira. They spoke Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't Aveira because they didn't trust the message. They didn't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ability. Again, maybe that might have been, sort of the sweeping problem over here in terms of the big picture. But again, when we follow the rules, and if you are sensitive to what the Torah demands of us, and that stops us. So there's so much of these things of being sensitive to the halacha and being sensitive to what we're communicating, which is sort of the Musa part of the Torah, the Musa part of the Shulchan Aruch, that sort of fifth Shulchan Aruch, that the common sense kind of concept of what am I communicating, what am I saying. It seems that those are the things that really lead to devastation. And therefore, just to imagine that this whole thing could have been avoided just with Klal Yisrael, with the Meraglim picking a different word, just leaving that word out, one word, even though they clearly, as Rashi told us, they weren't planning a very good, trip. They had already left with a negative point of view of what's happening here. What they're going to be coming back with, but with all of that said, it still would have been okay. It still would have come out okay if they had been sensitive to the power of their speech and to the concept of not being able to speak negatively about a land that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to give us. What are you doing? What are you speaking Lashon Hara for? What are you speaking about a land which again it's inanimate, but at the same time reflects the Kadosh Baruch Hu's gift to us? And what's what are you doing? What do you? Maybe it was maybe Motzi Shemra, maybe Lashon Hara, but either way, it didn't have to be said. Didn't have to be said in the way that it was said, and that seems to be the paramount Aveira. So again, it really drives home the point how if we're sensitive on the little things, that could do so much to protect us. Sort of in the same vein, Rabbi Avrohom Zatzal made a point of how, and the Torah makes a point. If the Torah makes a point, any point the Torah makes, you see how critical that is. So the Torah says that Kolev, later on in this week's parsha, Kolev, ki ruach acheres ha'isa boy, because he had this other spirit, this almost otherworldly spirit, then I'm going to reward him. Vavdi Kolev, ekev ha'isa ruach acheres, imoy ve'malei acharoi, he is going to come into Eretz Yisrael, him and Yeshua, and they're going to inherit what the other ones will not. So he asked, what's this Ruach Acheres? He had another spirit. What do you mean other spirit? So Rashi seems to say, he spoke, with subterfuge. Now we're so, adept with leaks and spies and informants and all those, so we know what informants do. They make believe you're nice, with everybody else and with the people you're around, and then you go back and you say over the story to other people. So I mean, this is what a typical spy would do. So what exactly is this big Ruach Acheres? So what's exactly the big deal? Because he made believe, where did he do this? He made believe that he was with the Meraglim by saying, is this all that Moshe Rabbeinu did for us, seeming that he was going to pile on? Everyone thought he was going to pile on the negativity. So everyone was quiet. Whoa, we got Kolev on our side. And once everyone was quiet, he turned the direction saying, Moshe Rabbeinu did so much for us. He split the sea, and he's been such an incredible agent, he's such an incredible leader. What are we doing? What's happening here? So he made the point. He says that doesn't sound like it needs a Ruach Acheres. So he says the pshat is because it does need a Ruach Acheres. Because even again, something like this, we see again the power of speech. Something like this, even though it's logical, even though you'd say, of course, that's what he should do. But when you play that sort of two-faced game, and you appear to be on one side, then you come out on the other side. While that might look like great in the spy world, that leaves a roishim on a person's neshama. That really should not be done. That's sort of genevas das. Even though well-intentioned, normally leaves a mark and normally leaves a negative imprint upon a person's soul, that he's got to be doing that two-faced lying all the time. So that would have left, typically, Kalev would have been impacted and affected by that. But says the Pasuk, Eikav Ruach Acheres Ha'isabah, he had such a special spirit that even though he played that game, it didn't affect him. That's what the Pasuk means. That even though he was Achas B'Peh V'Achas B'Leiv, he still was Kalev. He was still this incredible tzaddik. That is what warrants the Torah pointing it out, to talk about him deserving a special commendation for that. So you see again, I mean, I'm justified. It's okay. I need to do this. But you see, with all of that being said, it required a ruach acheres. The pasuk has to go out of its way to say Kalev was unaffected by this type of subterfuge. Again, that means typically how careful we have to be if we're sort of playing that game and saying things that are deceptive and not being straight. It affects us. It affects us and turns us into not straight people. The speech has the impact on the neshama. It's a window to what's going on deep down inside. So it's another support to this concept of if we sort of keep the fort down and hold the fort down with the kayach of the dibur, which is the singular. Specific area where HaKadosh Baruch Hu elevated us over the animals. We're that's the one power that we have that they don't have. That power of communication, the power of speech. We can keep that on the highest and holiest levels. But Hashem, you see how it would have spared the Meraglim, how it required a Ruach Acheres to help Kalev, and Bez Hashem, it'll certainly help us to achieve our goals in going Mechayel Chayil.